welcome to another Beyond the Podium extra on the WTOV 9 YouTube channel. Thanks so much for joining us today. Lou Gentile, former Ohio State Senator from Steubenville, joining us. Lou, thanks for hopping on for a few minutes. We want to talk about the DNC last week. I'm just going to come out and ask you point blank, who do you think the most effective speakers were?
Well, there were some really good speakers at the Democratic National Convention. I thought that our nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris, did an amazing job speaking not just to the faithful in the room, but reaching beyond that to talk to Americans in all states and all across this country, I think with a really strong message about how to move the country and keep the country moving forward, keeping the economy strong, keeping us safe from foreign and domestic terrorism. So I thought she did a great job. I thought the Obamas were incredibly effective as well. But I was also really impressed by the number of Republicans that actually spoke at the convention, saying that while they may have disagreements, substantive disagreements with the Harris-Walz campaign, that they believe in freedom, they believe in maintaining our democracy and having a peaceful transfer of power. So I thought it was notable that so many Republicans, despite their policy differences, are saying that we can't go back to the chaos under Trump. We need to move forward with Vice President Harris.
And that's a very good point you bring up. Representative Adam Kinzinger spoke, the mayor of Mesa, Arizona, saying that some Republicans feel as if they don't have a place right now. Middle of the line, moderate Republicans, some of these speakers made that point. What could an effective strategy be from the Harris-Walz ticket to maybe secure more of those people feeling that way, of course, being those moderate Republicans?
I think they're doing that already. They're releasing the names of former presidential advisors under George W. Bush and other notable Republican leaders, releasing the names of many people who held high-profile positions in the government who just don't think Donald Trump is fit for office. And so I think that momentum coming off the convention, listening to the speech that Adam Kinzinger gave, among many other Republicans who are sounding the alarm bell, saying this isn't the Republican Party that we recognize that had conservative principles and values. This is a party that has fealty to one individual and only loyalty to Donald Trump, and not to the values, the core values that many traditional Republican conservatives believe in. So I thought that was profound. And the use of real people at this convention, talking about their experiences and how policy that Donald Trump and his administration had implemented had affected their lives personally, and how Harris and the Democrats are trying to reverse that. And so I think the number of, obviously, the great speakers, you had the Obamas make the case for Harris, but also talk about why former President Trump is unfit. That, coupled with the fact that you had so many Republicans, a former aide to the First Lady, Melania Trump, and many others who were just saying that Donald Trump's unfit and we're supporting Harris. Despite their issues, look, we can disagree. And I think that that's part of the problem with our body politic these days, is you and I can have a substantive disagreement on policy, but this election's coming down to character, I think. And the more that Harris focuses on, not only her policies, but her distinct style from Donald Trump, I think is going to benefit her.
Another person we heard from for maybe the first time for some people on a large scale was Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, of course. What did you make of, Coach, as Kamala refers to him as sometimes, what did you make of his pitch to the party and to the country?
Well, I mean, it's been a whirlwind for our vice presidential candidate, Governor Walz. To me, he's doing an amazing job. I mean, this is somebody who I think really resonates with many Americans throughout the heartland. Someone who was a teacher, who was a coach, who has done an effective job not only as a congressperson, but as a governor. I think somebody that can really bring people together and really connects, I think, the Democratic Party to large swaths of the country and to working people in the country. I thought he was remarkable. I think his family is relatable. It was tragic that some on the right, some conservative news outlets took it upon themselves to attack his son, who has a disability. But I think all that aside, I think Walz's message is resonating, and he's just sort of an everyday type of person and can really connect with voters. I think that's going to make a huge difference in this election. I think he's going to be viable in terms of going out to parts of the country, rural, urban, suburban, and really talking directly to voters. It's a big state. Our presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, can't be everywhere. So he's going to be, I think, a really useful surrogate. And you contrast that with what they're getting at Vance, right? Where I think he's really not done an effective job of bringing people into the Republican Party, right? He's sort of casting away large swaths of the electorate and constituencies.
Let's shift gears. Senator Sherrod Brown did not attend the DNC. He instead chose to travel around the state, making some appearances. He was in the Mahoning Valley, did not come to the Ohio Valley. We haven't seen him for a little while, which is, of course, interesting during a political cycle. What do you make of the Senate race right now in Ohio and the strategies that Senator Brown is taking?
Well, I do want to push back a little bit, because Senator Brown has been very active in Eastern Ohio. He's been a leading voice, even though the plant is in West Virginia with the closure of Weirton Steel. We understand the impact of the jobs in Ohio. He has been a loud voice for the workers in the Ohio Valley, for people on a pension who are part of United Mine Workers Union, the Teamsters Union. He's done a whole lot on behalf of workers, retirees, and everyday people in the Ohio Valley. So I expect him to be back. I'll be participating in a roundtable with him in Athens, Ohio this week. And so I'm optimistic about his campaign. What I would say about the convention is, and I can relate, because I was a candidate in both 2012 and 2016 and took a day or two to go to the convention, but it's really difficult when you're running a full-blown campaign. And you've got to be in 88 different counties, and you're taking every day you can, especially in the summer while they're on recess and not in the U.S. Senate, to campaign and connect directly with the voters of Ohio. So I can understand why Senator Brown would prioritize going to the voters and talking to voters last week during the convention, when he has a limited number of days to do that in so many places he has to reach.
Usually it's around Labor Day when we see things really pick up, but I would say the last 2 weeks, just as a resident in the Ohio Valley watching television, I've seen numerous Bernie Moreno commercials and numerous Sherrod Brown commercials. What do you think is going into this advertising in terms of money? And do you think it's effective where they're placing it? And is it being placed? Is enough being placed here?
Well, I know we had touched on this a little bit ago, and I was encouraged to actually see the Harris-Walz campaign investing in Ohio and putting money to work in the media markets. Of course, when you're in Youngstown and Steubenville, you're also getting other media markets in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And so I think it's important that they do that, and that they don't cede any ground in this state or in this Midwest at all to the Trump-Vance ticket. As it relates to Senator Brown's campaign, yeah, that's going to be a heavily contested race. The U.S. Senate hangs in the balance. That is a top tier target race for both Democrats and Republicans in this cycle, in this election cycle. So you're going to continue to see the ad spending. You're going to continue to see both campaigns and candidates making a hard push to talk to voters in all corners of the state. And by no means will this race be a slam dunk for either campaign. Although I am encouraged by the polling that's come out for Senator Brown, by his ability to raise money, and quite frankly, the connectivity he has to working people all across the state, and particularly in the Ohio Valley.
We've seen the Trump-Vance ticket really make a push for the labor union support. We saw some pushback from that last week, of course, at the DNC with speakers from that. How do you think that translates to the Senate race? Do you think that's an area, the laborers, that's something that Sherrod Brown's always been a big proponent of, the unions, union work? Do you think that's something that translates to a priority for the Senate race?
Yeah, I mean, look, Senator Sherrod Brown has a very long and distinguished history of standing up for unions, for standing up for working class people. He has numerous union endorsements. Not only does he have their support financially, but he has boots on the ground by their rank and file and by their activists who are going to be out going door to door, connecting directly with voters. I think that contrast that with Bernie Moreno, who I think is somebody who has a murky record when it comes to his employees he took away their overtime pay. Sherrod Brown, Senator Sherrod Brown, has fought to protect overtime for workers. So there's a much different record on how Moreno has treated employees versus how Sherrod Brown looks after and takes care of workers. And we've seen that not only locally with the mine workers' pensions, but also how Sherrod Brown was really on the front lines of looking out for the Weirton steel workers, fighting for better trade agreements, fighting to protect healthcare, fighting to protect pensions. And he's got a long track record of doing that. So certainly I think it'd be hard to wrestle that support away from him. And I think he'll continue to see that support throughout the rest of this campaign.
Lou, thank you so much. Election day is creeping up closely as we get into the month of September. I'm sure we will talk to you much more for some of your insight on these races. Thanks again for joining us.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.